Irony. What is irony? Do you know? No, you don't. I do, and I'm gonna tell you. So, you think you know what irony is, right? You got the dramatic, the verbal, the situational. Dramatic is when the audience knows something that the characters do not. Situational is when something happens that you wouldn't expect to, like an ambulance running someone over. And verbal is just sarcasm. These are all plebeian forms of irony for stupid babies who do not understand irony. This isn't the 1600s anymore. We have better forms of irony. Or, not we have better forms of irony, but we are on higher levels of irony. Imagine irony like the 10 dimensions suggested by quantum theory. The first dimension is dramatic, situational, and verbal irony. These are all for babies who do not want to venture further into the forms of irony. Level 2 of irony is very simple. It's leveled irony. When irony gets more levels added onto it. It can be any of the main 3 forms of irony, but just with more levels. Imagine points along the horizontal axis, and now you can go up and down the second axis. Would that make sense? Say there's verbal irony, and you say, oh, I want to kill children, but you don't want to kill children. And then you move further up, and you say, oh, I don't want to kill children, implying that you do want to kill children, but you don't actually want to kill children. This is very funny, because it's on a second layer. The more layers you add, the harder it becomes to convey, the harder it becomes to understand, and the funnier it gets. Oh, I really don't want to kill children is very hard to understand as meaning that you don't want to kill children, meaning you do want to kill children, meaning you don't want to kill children, meaning you do want to kill children, meaning you don't want to kill children. So, it doesn't work in that particular instance. That's because the statement is too simple. The same thing can be stated for situational and dramatic irony, although it's much harder for those 2 forms of irony to be layered onto. That's why it's funnier when it happens with those. Now, a third layer of irony is the cultural meta levels. Now, these are much like the layers where they can be pasted onto any point that was previously there, but they are much funnier because of the culture and meta levels. Things that wouldn't make sense at another point in time, or even maybe space, are much funnier because of that fact. Say, I said Thanos Chungus right now. This is leaning into the 4th layer of irony, the absurdist level of irony, when meaning is lost, but Thanos and Chungus are both things in our current culture. People 20 years ago, or maybe even 20 years in the future, wouldn't understand why that was a joke, or why that was funny. But people currently do understand that it was a joke, and thus, they can find it funny. Meta-irony is funnier because it's not timeless. Timeless comedy always gets a laugh. Meta-comedy does not, making it much harder. Meta-irony is on the same tier, and is funny for the same reasons. Well, due to the fact that it's only funny in certain situations. In a way like situational irony, but situational irony is often similarly timeless. Meta-irony is only funny in the context of the current level of irony, or not the current level of irony, but the departure from it. Implying different levels or layers of irony is a meta-irony. When you pretend to be more or less ironic than you're currently being, then that's meta-irony. And it's funny due to the point that it's a lie. Or not a lie, but a lie in the way a joke is a lie if you never reveal the punchline. Everyone understands that it was a joke, but there was no punchline, so it wasn't exactly funny. Which brings us to the fourth level of irony. I can't gesture with my hand because we're not in the fourth dimension and we can't see it, but it's probably time. So technically I am gesticulating it. Now, the fourth level is the meaning, the absurdity level, when meaning is gone, or meaning is subverted and changed to the point where it's comedy. Now, I'll give an example. Current meme culture is somewhere in this area, where you'll say Thanos Chimichangas, XD at random, and the comedy will be purely in the fact that it was meaningless, it was random. We understand that randomness isn't really funny, but that fact makes it funny on a third level, cultural meta-irony level, and on a fourth level of the absurdity of it. Absurdity is funny. Absurdist comedy has been around for a long time. We will find absurdist comedy at least somewhat funny. At least culture says that. Now, absurdist irony is the logical conclusion to that, where we reach an ironic level of absurdity, where we're being absurd in a very calculated manner. Now, I said Thanos Chimichangas a second time, but with a minor change, with the chimmy added, where before I said Thanos Chungus. Now, it's still random, and it's still absurdist, but I did think about it, making it funnier, because it's absurdity. Why would I think about it? Because of the comedy. The fifth level of irony is sincerity. Sincerity and truth are the fifth level of irony. Much like the layers level, where there is truth and then there is irony, and then there's an ironic truth, there is truth, and then there is irony, and then there is truth. But not ironic truth, actual truth. When truth comes in. As we know, irony is the absence of truth and sincerity for a comedic purpose. But once the truth is there, then all other forms of irony fall apart, and yet still work for a comedic purpose. The sincerity does not undermine the irony, but it does completely change it, in the form of self-deprecating humor. If you say, I want to kill myself completely sincerely, that's not very funny, that's not irony. 0 levels of irony. If you say, I don't want to kill myself, then you're using verbal irony, sarcasm, and you do want to kill yourself. If you say, oh man, I really want to kill myself, then there's the I want to kill myself, ironically meaning I don't want to kill myself, meaning I want to kill myself. If you go up another layer, you might say, oh man, I really hope Thanos doesn't snap his fingers twice, am I right? Meaning that you do want him to, because that would kill you, etc. The fourth level, you would say, maybe. It's harder to think of because I've come up with such a basic starting sentence, but you might say, Waka waka, I'm Pac-Man and I'm gonna ram my face into this ghost because I really want to. It's referential and it's absurd and it's layered and it's satirical. And it's verbal irony. Sarcastical. Then, on the fifth level, you'd say, I want to kill myself. And all the other forms of irony come crashing down, but you would say, I want to kill myself, and there'd be a picture of Thanos Fortnite dancing, and in the background there'd be flashing colours, and there'd be a watermark which says, "Not really though," and then another watermark that says, "Maybe really though," and it's absurd, and it's true, and it's so funny because of how awful it is. And then there's the fact that truth is not real. There is no such thing as truth, so sincerity is the only form of this. But sincerity is when you're being truthful, and if truth isn't real, then can you ever be sincere? If we've reached a point in society where I've made jokes of original irony being the 1600s, can any of us truly been sincere ever again? Yes, the boomers can, but we're not them. So can we ever be sincere again? Sixth level of irony is chaos. Chaos and meaninglessness. Strip away the sincerity with another layer of irony. Irony is back. You pile it on. It's not a loop. It's more of a squiggle, like a big ball of wibbly wobbly irony stuff. You don't understand why it's funny anymore, but it's still funny. Even with the "I want to kill myself" Thanos dancing, you think, haha, dark humor. I know Thanos, that's so funny and ironic. You see a picture of a man you've never met, and he's just got a gun to his head, and he's screaming, "I wish Thanos would snap his fingers twice." And this joke only works in the context of this video, where I've already mentioned Thanos snapping his fingers twice. And the man is you, and he's also me, and he's inside our heads, and nothing is real anymore. And the irony has brought us all together and broken us all apart. It's true, sincerest form of irony due to the pure chaos, because the world is a chaotic place, and if we don't have chaos, then do we really have a world? If we don't have each other, can we ever have loneliness? If we don't have truth, can truth even not be real? Because truth not being real is a true statement, which is a paradox. Which is also the seventh form of irony, but maybe the sixth, because the levels don't really make sense. They're more like, imagine that the graph is like this, but actually this axis was also this one, and this one, and this one, and all the axes didn't make sense, and all fitted together, and this video is meaningless. That's why the sixth, or maybe seventh, or first to infinite level is paradoxes. Because irony is, on its basic level, a paradox verbally for comedy, or situationally, or dramatically. Dramatic ironic comedy doesn't really fit in with the other two, but it is the most basic form of irony that you learn about in English classes and stuff, so it fits in with them. The paradoxes are just pure forms of chaos, where they don't make sense and no one understands them, but they do make sense and they're kind of funny. But this is also bringing us to our eighth level of irony, which is not funny, didn't laugh. Where it's not very funny. And that's the joke. Get it? Because it's not very funny, but it's a joke. So it should be funny, but you didn't mean for it to be funny, but you did kind of mean for it to be funny, and that's the paradox. So everyone's thinking, wow, that was... I get it, and everyone thinks, maybe I don't really get it, because I didn't actually find that funny. And you think, haha, was that really funny? And no one knows, and no one understands, and comedy is meaningless and irrelevant. And that's when you reach more levels of irony. I'm not even going to number them anymore, which are sadness and happiness and intelligence. You forgot about intelligence. The 20th level of irony is intelligence. Half of these jokes don't make sense if you don't understand or have a basic grasp on the concept of multiple dimensions in quantum theory. So if you're not smart like me, you don't understand the comedy. And that was ironic, unself-deprecating, self-deprecating humor, where I pretended I thought I was smart to show that I thought I was dumb because I hate myself. But not really, but also kind of really. Do you get what irony is now? No, you don't. Only I do. But do I? No, I don't.